Lambton Phragmites Community Group consists of 8 volunteers. Got together when we realized that we had an issue with Phragmites on our beach and in our watershed near. Over the past 6 years, we have worked with other organizations and private landowners to restore wetland habitats and beaches. And to date, the restoration work has begun on over 300 acres along the shoreline and watershed in Lambton Shores. So of the 8 volunteers, 6 of us are retired, and this has become we're very passionate about what we are doing, and it has become, for myself, almost a full-time job. But we were very pleased that in 2013 we received an honorable mention for environmental excellence through the Ministry of the Environment and Climate Change, and so that was great for us. So the next slide, I wanted to just set the stage, I guess. The Municipality of Lambton Shores is located within Lambton County in the southeast basin of Lake Huron. Our shoreline extends in the northeast from Grand Bend down through the Pinery Provincial Park, the villages of Port Franks, the village of Ipperwash, Kettle and Stony Point First Nations, and then there are a number of cottage communities that are separated from each other by gullies. The area, the agriculture, the economic base is tourism and recreation and agriculture. And we have within within the municipality many areas of natural and scientific interest. We have many areas that are considered provincially significant and globally rare, and these include Carolinian Core Forest, Oak Savanna, beautiful coastal dunes, lands, and interesting rock formations in Rock Glen and in Kettle Point. So again, the economic base is tourism and recreation, and our community, our residents, are very proud of the natural heritage that we have within our municipality.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bill McDonald, and Nancy and I are in different locations. Kelly mentioned that we're remote from each other as well, so hopefully we can do this, and you'll be able to hear us both. In any case, we thought we would by taking you kind of right back to the beginning. Here we're showing a photo, a picture of the Port Franks Beach that was taken in 2009. That you can see a plant in the foreground. This was taken on a beach near my cottage, and that I had personally just noticed the previous fall. Had no clue as to what it was. I was surprised at how much it had grown in a relatively short period of time. As I was observing this, Nancy had become aware of invasive Phragmites, and when we talk here, we're of course talking strictly about invasive Phragmites, not the natural Phragmites, which so infrequently occurs. So simply invasive Phragmites. And she discovered that through a workshop that had been presented by the Lake Huron Center for Coastal Conservation. This group is based in Goderich, and they are very active in the coastal areas of Lake Huron, and are a great resource for providing information and tips, and been very helpful to us. So she became aware of it at that workshop, and she discovered when one of the people from the Lake Huron Center was visiting her at her home that it was actually growing in a wetland right across from her house. So those things kind of began our involvement in Phragmites control in our immediate community. We thought was going to be just something that we were dealing with in very close proximity to our own homes. But as you'll learn, it's become much more extended and in fact almost province-wide in what we're doing. It's turned out to be both a very fascinating and sometimes frustrating experience. Just to talk a little bit about the Port Franks Beach. This is a privately owned beach. And as we soon discovered, any remediation efforts involving pesticides were precluded by Ontario's Cosmetics Pesticides Ban Act of 2008, because it was private land. We were spending a lot of time trying to learn more about how to control this invasive plant. We did learn that removing the seed heads, which we had learned by then contained upwards of 2,000 seeds in each head, might help in controlling its rapid expansion. Began our first hands-on attempt at control as we mustered several volunteers to help cut, bag, and dispose of these seed heads. In 2010, we learned that while removing seed heads and cutting or mowing and burning would help in the short term, were not effective in the longer term and actually in some stimulate Phragmites growth. I learned that Phragmites had no natural predators, so only human intervention could control it. I discovered that the only truly effective method involved the use of herbicides. In residents of an area, as Nancy mentioned previously, that is provincially significant for coastal dunes, Canadian forests, rare flora and fauna, and to 7 of the 8 turtle species found in Ontario, we believe we are all ecologically minded and sensitive to our surrounding environment. The thing we ever expected going into this was that we would have to become advocates for the use of herbicides. With no choice other than to let Phragmites completely take over our beaches, wetlands, coastal dunes, river and creek banks, and choking out native plants and species at risk in the process, we to explore the use of safe, approved chemicals to control Phragmites, which we discovered could be done on private lands, provided that the then Ministry of Natural Resources issued the necessary permission. The whole new learning experience for us as we discovered what had to be done in applying for such an exemption. By 2010, we had an approved letter of opinion in hand and a tractor lined up, and we were ready to go to work. The ban for herbicide treatment is in the fall. With heavy beach usage, we would not have been able to begin work until after Labor Day in any case, and the big issue is that you need to have the weather cooperate. We discovered quickly that doesn't happen when you need it to. So coordinating volunteers and contractors, along with the weather, became a logistical nightmare. Because our permit was only good until November 2011, we were under the gun to get this work done. In late October, everything came together and we were able to start. Now, this next group of photos is just to show you left-hand side, the group of volunteers that we organized. In the background, a little hard to see, is a vehicle that's used as a spraying platform by the contractor, mounted on an Argo or a vehicle, which he can then manipulate through the various areas that he's spraying. In the top right-hand corner, you see a bunch of people within the Phragmites site. What we're actually doing there is hand wicking. Because there were other plants, a lot of cases Phragmites is monoculture, but in this case the monoculture hadn't formed fully, so there were other plants in the area. So we had to do hand wicking, which really consists of taking a washing machine mitt, sticking it into a pail of mixed chemical, and then touching the plant in several spots along the stalk to allow the herbicide to take effect. On the right-hand picture, you'll see that in the areas where we could spray, we were using backpack sprayers. And again, to the left side, not very clear, but shows the contractor on the platform spraying. left-hand side on this next slide, you'll see 3 weeks after that the material was already showing signs of being killed, turning color, turning yellow, and that began the process of actually removing the biomass. So you can see that in this particular area, we had to do this by hand, and had volunteers using tools which consisted of basically a weed whacker, but with a blade mounted on the end. And obviously very labor intensive, but we had enough volunteers that we could get this particular piece done. The whole area here was probably in the vicinity of less than an acre. Then if we go down to the bottom side on the left, you'll see that that volunteers are breaking the material up and doing the process of eliminating the biomass by fires on the beach. So what you don't see in the background is we had to have fire suppression equipment available. We have bylaws in our community as to open burning, and we had to have pumps and what available just in case anything went wrong, which fortunately did not. 2 weeks after spraying, a little bit different view of this particular area, but you can see that the patches of frags, we call frag, have greatly diminished. And at the same time, the native dune grasses, particularly moram grass, American beach grass, was not affected. We were very careful to make sure that we did not touch anything other than Phragmites. 18 weeks after spraying, we could see that all of the frag was eliminated, and that we now had a site that could be controlled essentially by hand spading. And what this consists of is if we see any new shoots coming up, because it's impossible, as I think most of you probably know, the bulk of this plant resides below the ground in the rhizomes, and you will get something that's sprouting from a rhizome, and what we simply do is take a spade and cut below the surface of the ground, a few inches into the ground, and deal with it that way. That actually is we did that particular site, and what we were trying to avoid, which we didn't realize at the time, got further into this. We want to avoid having our beach look like this particular beach. This photo was taken at a church camp, a summer camp that's been in operation for in excess of 50 years. And they had a perfectly pristine beach up until a few years ago. And when their beach became populated with Phragmites, they did not have any control methods. They didn't know what to do. They simply left the Phragmites to grow and pose and swim at your own risk. So this was something that we definitely wanted to avoid.
Okay, what seemed to follow naturally was that as a group of volunteers, we started to look at the bigger picture, or we looked at the landscape. We took a landscape approach. And what we realized that was, as long as the banks of Mud Creek and the Osable River were infested with Phragmites, and as long as there were private properties that had Phragmites on them, and our roadsides within the village of Port Franks were contaminated with Phragmites, that we would continue to have a huge issue on the beach, because both Mud Creek and the Osable River emptied into Lake on our shoreline. So this meant that we needed to engage the Municipality of Lambton Shores, the Osable Bayfield Conservation Authority, and property owners along these watersheds. So in January, I believe, of 2012, we had a delegation go to council, and we were very fortunate to have Jeff Peach from the Coastal Center and our contractor accompany us to this council meeting. We were given 10 minutes. We put together a PowerPoint presentation. Our goal was primarily to educate, but also we wanted to, we asked for $5,000 from the municipality to help us to get their properties in Mud Creek under control. And we talked about the cost, how much it would cost the municipality by ignoring this issue. And so we were really pleased when we were given the $5,000. The Oswego Bayfield Conservation Authority had, within Port Franks, had been very active and was running a successful turtle monitoring program. As Belle mentioned, we have 7 of the 8 species of turtles. And what we did when we talked to them was we talked about the threat of the habitat to the turtles, and the Conservation Authority joined with us. Property owners, there were over 130 private properties, went to the municipal tax rolls, got addresses, and we were successful in getting all of those property owners to sign off on 2 permission forms, one for herbicide application, if it was appropriate, and the second was for a controlled burn, again, if it was appropriate. So then Nature Conservancy also had property within the boundaries of Port Franks, and they found out through our contractor that we were going to be doing some work, and they contacted us and became involved with this first project. The Conservation Authority took the lead in applying to the Great Lake Guardian Fund, and we were successful in getting about $25,000 to begin the work up the river. So just a couple of slides here. This is a picture of the Nature Conservancy property at L Lake. This is a wetland that, again, it's an area of natural and scientific interest. Just to show you what we were dealing with. The gentleman on the right these are 2 of our volunteers. The gentleman on the right is 6'3", so that gives you an idea of the height of the stand of frag. And with the density, we are standing on a track that was created by the Argo, and when we got off the Argo, we were a good 1.5 feet off of the ground. So the biomass in this area was very thick. And what has happened, the bad news with this situation is that over the past 4 years, we have had funds to be able to go in and do restoration work. But because the Phragmites is in standing water, we've been unable to begin this project. But it is a priority. As soon as we get the tools, we will be in there and getting this under control. The next slides are of, there are 3 that are going to go together. This is a demonstration project that initiated. We offered a community information session. We realized that we had a project that was going to involve most of the Port Franks area and residents. So we did held a community information session that was greatly attended, and the Conservation Authority and the municipality helped us with that, in sponsoring that. The Conservation Authority, of course, had not budgeted funds for that season, but they did agree to participate in this project, and our contractor offered to apply herbicides to a small island in the heart of the village and in the middle of the river, and it's called Mosquito Island. It's a very small island. This picture is of Mosquito Island in August 2010 when it was completely infested with Phragmites. And the Conservation Authority did a species inventory and pretty much solid frag. It was very high stand of frag. So in 2011, a contractor sprayed the island. And this photo is of the island in April 2012. After spraying, our volunteers went in and cut and burned the dead stalks in small piles. And the following photo is of that same year in July, and this is a great photo because our community was able to see that the native vegetation came back. And in the background is Big Island, which was not sprayed. In the foreground is Mosquito Island, where the restoration work had taken place and the native plants were coming back. And it shows the contrast. Also, this photo illustrates another issue that we continue to deal with in Port Franks. You'll notice that there are a lot of boats. In the summertime, our rivers we have lots of boaters, we have marinas, and we were very concerned about fire, the safety hazards. Should those stands of frag go up, we would have a real problem in our hands, and that continues to be an issue for us in Port Franks, as there are islands that have cottages where there is Phragmites, and the volunteer fire department will not go over. So we're concerned about fire. So what then was, again, just seemed to the ball rolling or the train had left the station, I guess, and we were on that train. We went back to council in 2012 and asked for their support and money to hire Dr. Janice Gilbert to complete an invasive Phragmites management plan for all of our municipality. This was approved, and the plan was adopted by council in March of 2014. The management plan is available on the municipal website if people are interested in accessing that. At this time, we were also busy initiating projects in other shoreline communities. I mentioned in the introduction that we had a number of cottage neighborhoods that were separated by gullies, and we started contacting people, and in some cases they were contacting us. Our goal was to set up subcommittees in these other cottage areas. We initially, our goal was to help them by participating in community information sessions and providing them with educational materials and getting them started, but then our hope was that they would then carry on in the restoration work. And this concept seems to work. I do want to mention here that just talk for a minute about Grand Bend. Grand Bend, because it truly is a success story, and it also reinforces the importance of early detection and rapid response when you're dealing with an invasive species. Because we knew what we were looking for, we were able to detect or to find 12 small cells of Phragmites in Grand Bend. We got in touch with Grand Bend Horticulture, who in turn contacted the Conservation Authority. A committee information session was held. A plant identification workshop was delivered by the Conservation Authority. The work was the contractor was hired. The work was completed all within 5 months. And the cost for that work was probably around $3,500. And I want to tell you that the work that we are doing in Port Franks is going to be well over $200,000, and the work in Woods Drive, another coastal wetland with 300 acres of Phragmites, it'll probably be close to $300,000. So early detection and rapid response is just so important. And also, what was happening in Lambton Shores was that our municipality was engaged in treating the roadsides, and what we were doing was coordinating our roadside work with the work that was going on the shoreline. And our municipality now budgets every year to continue doing that, and all of our municipal roads have been treated. Roadside work was also a part of our management plan, and so we knew we needed to engage Lambton County. Our municipality, like all municipalities, has provincial highways, county roads, municipal roads, agricultural drains and ditches, and so we needed to all get together. So our mayor and deputy mayor began taking their concerns to county meetings in 2012, And we were contacted by the manager of Public Works because he was seeing the pressure. He had been directed to develop a control strategy for the 2013 county budget. And his comments were that the Phragmites in Lambton County was prolific and there was an increasing concern for drainage and maintenance. And he also expressed interest in learning more about roadside control. They had hired a student in 2012 to map the occurrence of Phragmites, and we were really pleased to hear that he had attended a community information session that we held in Forest. The county had also experimented with an eco-blade. So we arranged for a meeting in December of 2012. Janice Gilbert was present, and our manager of community services, the director of public works from Lambton County, and the roadside superintendent. And this was the first time that the municipality and the county began sharing their ideas for roadside control. And they continue to share, they continue to use the same contractors, so that is really good news. At this meeting, we stressed the importance of cleaning heavy equipment to avoid spreading of Phragmites and the importance of proper disposal of contaminated materials. And we later offered a workshop for frontline staff, and the county sent their staff to this workshop. This workshop was when the clean equipment protocol that was created by the Ontario Invasive Plant Council was introduced at this workshop to frontline municipal staff. This was from surrounding municipalities, conservation authorities. The City of London and Hamilton, I believe, was present at this meeting as well, and contractors who tendered with our municipality. So we then, the next thing that brought us together with the county was wind turbines. In southwestern Ontario, wind turbines seem to have gone up overnight, and in Lambton Shores we have hundreds of them. And one afternoon driving to London, I became really concerned because what I was seeing was heavy equipment going through standing frag in the roadside ditches going into farmers' fields. And so as a result of that, we sent an email to the county and expressed our concern. And the result of that was that now, it just happened to be when there was a public review taking place, and now Phragmites is considered an important addition to all future land use agreements. So that was a good news story as well. And we have also taken the community liaison representatives from both Suncor and NextEra Energy out to see the work that we are doing in Lambton Shores and asked for their support, and we've been successful in receiving some funds from NextEra Energy. So that has been a success story as well for us.
Another success story is our relationship with the agricultural community. By 2014, most of our remediation work focused on the areas closest to Lake Huron. We became concerned that the creeks and rivers feeding into the lake might be acting as spread vectors to allow seeds and rhizomes from upstream infestations to contaminate areas we were in the process of rehabilitating. We approached our local conservation authority, Sauble Bayfield CA, who by this time were heavily engaged with us in rehabilitating lands they owned along the major river feeding into Lake Huron. Work with them on mapping infestations upstream in the watersheds leading to the lake. It also approached a person who was a VP with the Ontario Federation of Agriculture at that time to share with him our concerns that Phragmites would be clogging drainage ditches and tiles, impeding water flow, and causing flooding. In addition to becoming a fire hazard and even impacting sight lines at rural intersections, creating vehicle safety issues. We organized a meeting with their organization, Municipality, and Phragmites experts, and they quickly came on board, supporting the efforts of the Ontario Phragmites Working Group in seeking the Ontario government's approval for 4 key action items. allowing emergency use permits for herbicides, approving aerial treatment applications, establishing a province-wide control program, and establishing an Invasive Species Act for Ontario. With financial support of our partner, the Grand Bend Community Foundation, we partnered with Asable Bayfield to map the upstream Phragmites infestations in our watersheds and to prepare information targeting the agricultural and rural landowner community. We were then able to implement a management plan for this area. You're going to see in a moment, we created a fact sheet which explained Phragmites' impact, identification tips, and detailed control information. 2 public information sessions where we had expert speakers provide detailed information, and we were able to bring together 5 expert speakers, including Dr. Janice Gilbert, who Nancy mentioned previously, who is a wetland ecologist and expert on Phragmites, a drain inspector from a southwestern Ontario community, the Lambton Shores, also a local farmer who had firsthand experience in dealing with Phragmites, and the president of the Ontario Federation of Agriculture. And it provided an excellent opportunity for rural landowners to get their questions answered and recognize the importance of controlling the spread of Phragmites. These sessions attracted substantial press coverage in Lambton County, and we believe got word out to the entire agricultural community about the seriousness of the Phragmites threat. This is the brochure. It might look a little small on your screen, but this is the brochure that we prepared in conjunction, as I say, with ABCA, Nature Conservancy, and with funding from the Grand Bend Community Foundation. We prepared a brochure that had a little sticker attached to it, and we did a direct ad mail campaign aimed at rural landowners in our area. The information provided showed them how to identify Phragmites, talked about the need for rehabilitating lands that were infested, the concern for the agricultural community, and even went as far as to give them information about the specific chemicals that they could use as farmers on this infestation. We're trying to show you a picture here of an agricultural drain. And this is actually a little difficult to follow perhaps, but it's a drain that flows onto Nature Conservancy lands. And you can see that there are heavy infestations of frag along that vector. So it's important for us to bring that to the community's attention, agricultural community's attention, because these things need to be fixed, and all farmers that share a watershed have share in the cost of remediating this. The next slide shows the roadside Phragmites that existed prior to treatment, and on the right-hand side is showing the area after Phragmites treatment was implemented. And in this particular case, this was a bit of an experiment because the biomass that was removed from the ditches here was actually spread onto the fields, the farmers' fields. He disked that into the ground, and he planted soybeans the following year, and they were Roundup Ready soybeans. So when he was able to spray the land the following year, he was able to deal with the issues of potential Phragmites contamination.
Sorry, Bob.
Nancy?
Okay, so the Lambton Shores Committee is continuing to implement the management plan and work down the shoreline, engaging other communities. Most recently, we have been contacted by cottage associations in Ipperwash, and our plan in the new year is to get a project going in Ipperwash, which again would include new partners. St. Clair Conservation has become a partner. We have 2 conservation authorities in Lambton Shores that we deal with. And this new initiative will involve St. Clair. St. Clair has been involved with our Woods Drive project, our 300-acre coastal meadow restoration project that is going on as well. And so we will continue to work down the shoreline. And what we want to kind of conclude this with is the lessons learned through our work, and also some key messages. The first lesson is, of course, the importance of partnerships. We are not a registered organization, and we rely on our partners to become the applicant in our grant applications. And these partnerships have been so important to us from the beginning. Our attitude has been, how can we do this together? We've not expected that any one organization or agency take on the full responsibility of cleaning this up. So that was the partnerships is a really important lesson. Other lessons are, of course, the importance of education. Every time we initiate a new project, it begins with education and community information sessions. Communication is extremely important. The community information sessions that we offer, by doing this, we're making sure that people have an opportunity to ask questions, and they aren't surprised when they see someone out with a backpack spraying the Phragmites. So communication is really important. We continue that too with newsletters and articles in the paper. Community involvement is also really important. The communities, we have found that the communities have come together in dealing with Phragmites. They actually get quite excited when they see new bird species they have seen for a while, and also they've helped us with our monitoring. Another lesson is the importance of mapping and having a management plan, knowing what you're dealing with. We have also learned that we need the support of experts, and we have been very fortunate in that regard. The Lake Huron Center for Coastal Conservation, Nature Conservancy, Janice Gilbert, our contractor, the conservation authorities, all of these agencies have people that have been able to help us at times. We've also learned the importance of taking a landscape approach. This is especially important when you're applying for grant applications because we're not just looking at our Frank's Beach. We're looking at how we can get rid of this in the larger area. Another lesson, the importance of site visits. In the case of Phragmites, a picture really isn't worth 1,000 words. What we are finding is that the impact of experiencing a stand of 300 acres of frag is just a mind-boggling experience for many people. So site visits are really important if you can arrange those. Having the support of the media is also very important. We have 2 local newspapers that have been great in giving us coverage of all of the different things that we are doing. We have one reporter who has actually spent 3 hours one cold, bitter morning on the shore of Lake Huron waiting for a controlled burn with wildfire burn specialists, and he gave us an excellent write-up in the paper. Another lesson, as Bill mentioned, having 5-year permits. If you're going to get a permit or a letter of opinion from the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, make sure that it is for 5 years. The next is planning for touch-up in all projects. Don't think that it's going to be a one-shot deal. We have experienced success in Port Franks. On the beach, I would say it's 99% eliminated, but we continue to be vigilant, and so you have to plan for touch-up. When you're doing presentations, stress the cost. What will happen if your municipality doesn't act? It's just going to end up costing even more. I mentioned the demonstration project and the value in having a demonstration project. Providing education and training for frontline staff is something else that is important. early detection, rapid response, and keeping a solution focus. How can we make this work? And that is something that we have, for the past 7 years, we just keep trying to see how we can get rid of this. And at times it is challenging. So there may be some repetition here, but these are the 11 key elements from our management plan that was created by Janice Gilbert. Number 1, understanding the scope of the problem. Number 2, establishing a program coordinator position, and this is something that we are pressing our municipality on. We really feel that we need to have a person at a municipal level who can coordinate for our municipality. Number 3, making sure you have sufficient funds. 4, implement an education program. Number 5, engage the local community. 6, sure in appropriate initial control efforts and follow up on control methods used. So I guess making sure that when you start out, you've really researched and you have a plan as to what you're doing. Number 7 is to institute a long-term control program. 8, track activities, efficacy, successes, and challenges. Number 9, designate Phragmites as a noxious weed. We had hoped our municipality would do that, but we believe that they are waiting for that direction to come from the province. There was some reluctance, and it had to do with enforcement. Even though in our situation, we as a committee had said that we would go out and do some education and talk to people and try to get them on board and work with us and apply for grants, but and only use a bylaw as the last resort. But our municipality was reluctant to do that. Number 10, expand control program outside of municipal jurisdiction. We have some properties in Ipperwash, which are Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry controlled, and similarly the Pinery Provincial Park, which is provincial. So we need to expand the program outside of the municipal jurisdiction. And number 11, and probably in our case, the most important right now is having herbicides which are appropriate for aquatic environments. We had these herbicides, we really feel that probably 2-3 years ago we would have had this issue under control. And it has been a challenge with the higher water levels that have occurred over the last couple of years, and we don't know what's going to be happening this coming summer. So we really need those herbicides. They are available in the United States, and we continue to lobby the government in the hopes that these will be approved. So that concludes, I guess, our presentation. And Kelly, you're going to be taking questions?
Yeah, thanks so much, Nancy and Bill. That was great. I just want to say quickly that I know right in a second it might be a little bit fuzzy for people, so I'll try to, because I think when all of us are unmuted, it becomes a little bit fuzzy, so I'll try to mute myself when Bill and Nancy are answering some questions. But I just want to say that anyone that has a question right now, please feel free to enter it in the Q&A box. If that doesn't work for you, you can use the chat box, but the Q&A box will just keep it a little bit more simplified for me. I've just muted you, Bill and Nancy, just for a second to reduce the noise level as well, but I'll unmute you. Actually, if you just want to leave it, and then I'll unmute you when I get a question. But so once I answer a few through the chat or Q&A box, I'll open up the phone lines. However, those that have called in through phone, if you're able to type in to the Q&A box, please do so, just so we can reduce the number of questions coming through the phone, so we don't have some overlap. But I will get started because I have 2 questions so far. So the first question is, This person is very interested in the removal of the Phragmites from a ditch line into a field, disking and then spraying as part of the agricultural practice. So I think they're referring to that picture about the farmer and the removal of Phragmites in the ditch. So they asked, was there germination, and how did you talk the farmer into trying this?
The first part of the question, I'm sorry, I can't answer that. I will tell you that the farmer that was doing this has been very supportive of what we've been doing, and he actually attended our first meeting with the Ontario Federation of Agriculture, and this is something that he is experimenting with. So I think we're waiting and we're seeing the results. We know that the ditch where standing frag was located is definitely a lot cleaner than it was previous to the spraying and the removal and putting it into his property. I believe that Al feels that this has been successful, but I can follow up with that and perhaps provide more information to Kelly.
All right. Thank you, Nancy. I hope that was able to answer some of that question. I have another question in here. What are you planning on using? Okay, so I think this has to refer to herbicide use, particularly the aquatic herbicide. So planning on using in the Nature Conservancy land in the standing water. I know we mentioned that there are no registered herbicides yet, Phragmites, for in standing water. Okay, so they're in the U.S., that's why, and they have bought Rodeo but have not used it in their demonstration project. So I'll just jump in. It is Kelly, and I know you guys have, Bill and Nancy have a lot of information about this, but for Susan that has just asked from the U.S., we don't actually have a registered product yet that can be used on Phragmites over water or in standing water. So that's one of the things that we've been trying to get our provincial government and also the Pesticide Regulatory Management Agency to help us get. That's unfortunately the one thing that we've been lacking, is the proper tool to control Phragmites in standing water. I don't know if you guys want to add anything else to that.
One of the things that came up in our discussions with the OA was the fact that when we talked about having noxious weed list to include Phragmites, they were not in favor of it at that particular point because the tools to deal with Phragmites in aquatic environments wasn't available. They would support us if that tool was available. So I guess what they're really saying is that, hey, there's nothing we can do, then don't put us in a position where legislatively we have to deal with it, but then we don't have the tools to be able to do it. So I think that the U.S., they don't have the same issue that we have, and it's an absolutely huge issue here, as Nancy had mentioned, particularly in our wetlands areas, because we have standing water and we can't deal with it. So it allows that infestation to continue to grow and become a spread vector for other lands that have been cleaned up. So that's the frustrating part that I mentioned in the first part of my talk.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Bill. Yeah, I just want to add to, there's been a lot of help from Janice and the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry and other volunteers and you guys to help get the approved herbicides. So things are moving ahead. There's been a lot of lobbying and a lot of push for that, and I'm confident that it will happen. It's just taking a little longer than expected. I just want to mention you guys had a bit of a compliment here from Robert in Michigan. That was a very good presentation, and he does want to stay in touch with someone. So I think what I'll do is probably when I post this online, Robert, I'll put some contact information up or include it in the survey that's going to be sent out after. And he's actually wondering if anyone's going to the Stewardship Network meeting in East Lansing, Michigan. I don't think we there. He wanted to know if any of us were going, but we definitely like to hear any Phragmites related initiatives that come out of that meeting. I have another question here from Matt, and he wants to know what herbicide was used to treat Phragmites. I know of a few, but I don't know if you guys want to mention that or discuss that, Bill or Nancy.
I think, you know, we're dealing with contractors, right? So the contractors are the ones that the legally licensed people to use these products, and there are 2 products that are legal for use in Ontario. And the formulations of those are actually contained in our agricultural brochure the fact sheet that we produced. We gave the information there. So on the top of my head, I would have to go back and refer to that document. We can get that for you if you like.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, like there are specific registered products. If you go onto the label search through the PMRA online, you can find which ones. And we do have, some information that we can send out, but there are registered legal products that are used that have Phragmites on the label. Yep.
I have that sheet right here, and it's currently there are only 2 products legally available in Canada: Control Phragmites, Max, and Vision Max.
Vision Max. Okay. Yeah.
And neither of those can be used over water.
Okay.
They're glyphosate based.
And they're glyphosate based. Okay. I'm going to go into this question because I find this question really interesting, and we don't get a lot of information about this. But in your experience establishing partnerships, what methods were found to be the best in initial outreach, and what methods were found to be ineffective? So the best and worst methods of establishing partnerships and conducting outreach.
I would say, I think looking, I mentioned earlier, looking at solutions, not dwelling at the problem. How can we work on this together? Being open, and I think it's a communication style. I've been told I have a gentle tenacity. Maybe some other people may think that that's being a pain in the neck. I don't know, but if quite honestly, there's not been a lot of resistance. I believe that everyone wants to get rid, that we have partnered with, wants to get rid of because they see the damage that it is doing to our environment. And I also mentioned that I feel, I'm just speaking for myself, I feel that we can't expect that one organization take the full responsibility for this. Had we known 20 years ago what Phragmites was, perhaps, you know, we wouldn't be in this situation right now, but we are, and I think that we have to work together to get rid of it. I don't know if that helps.
Just to add to Nancy's comment, I think one of the big issues is education that we referred to several times, I think, in the presentation, that just educating people. A lot of folks that, unless they're directly involved, don't really know what Phragmites is. They see it along the roadsides. They don't really think too much about it. So we have to provide the information and education to explain how this can become a monoculture, how it destroys biodiversity, and how it can be dealt with. And continuing that education, when we had face-to-face meetings with potential partners, it was really just a case of providing that information, and then everyone would have sort of an aha moment. Oh yeah, I know that thing. I've seen it. I know what's happening, and then we provide information, and as Nancy said, they quickly get on board.
Definitely. No,
And the jurisdictional issues that Nancy sort of referred to a little bit there, it's important because this Phragmites doesn't respect boundaries. Jurisdictional issues become a problem. Located on private land, that's located adjacent to conservation property, that's located adjacent to provincial property like a provincial park, that's located next to municipally owned property. It just becomes a complicated nightmare. Where do you clean up? Where do you stop? You have to have everyone on board in order to deal with it. Otherwise, you're only dealing with a part of the problem and not getting to the source of it.
For sure. No, that's great. Thank you. It is 1, but I know some people can leave if they choose to, but I think maybe I'll give a few more minutes for questions because I know how important it is. I'm going to unmute those on the phone, but for those that aren't going to ask a question, can you please mute yourself because I don't want any background noise. This is the first time trying this, so if it's too loud, then I'll just mute everyone again. But for those that do want to ask a question through the phone, we'll try it.
This is the Ontario Relation.
So I do hear a few people. So if you, like I said, if you can just mute yourself if you're on the phone, because I do want to give an opportunity to those on the phone if they have a question. But if they don't, within the next minute or so, I'm going to mute everyone again and just continue to answer through the text box here. Does anyone have a question on the phone?
The seminar is supposed to use that one for their research or content.
Maybe they have, like, I'm assuming these types of words do have.
Oops.
But I know.
Not our kind of, right? It's like,
Okay, I think, I don't think there's any questions on the
court.
I don't really know what.
I hear some background noise. Okay, nothing over the phone, but it's a little loud now. Oh, sorry. So, I'm going to try to... Sorry.
Oh, around my God.
Sorry, it's a little loud. I to figure out things here. So I think we are going to have to end it here. We are a few minutes over. But Nancy and Daryl, can you hear me?
I can barely hear you, Kelly. There's a lot of background.
Okay, sorry about that, everyone. I can't now mute everyone. But I think we did get some good questions in. So if anyone has any questions that didn't get answered, you can feel free to email me. I'll send out contact information afterwards. But I just want to say thank you very much, Nancy and Bill, and sorry for the ending here. Everything went so well, and now I can't get it to mute again. But thank you so much, and if anyone, like I said, if anyone has any questions, you can just email me and I'll send them out afterwards. But thank you, and have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thanks, Kelly.